Good morning, Janice and Liz.
Hello. Good morning.
Yes, and good morning to all of our guests from coast to coast today. And there's a lot of you out there. Now, I'm Joan Cosby. I'm a member of the Niagara Golden Horseshoe CAGP chapter. I'm also the donor motivation consultant for this area. Now, I'm wondering if you two can introduce yourselves briefly and share with us your drink of the day. So Janice, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Janice St-Denis, and I am a Director of Development in the Faculty of Health Sciences at McMaster University. And my drink, it's still corked. It's just over here over my shoulder. It is an Angel's Gate wine, and it is a 2008 Cab Merlot from the Niagara region. So there we are.
Super. I'm Liz Finney. I'm the Director of Fund Development at Bonnie Leaf Farm in Nova Scotia, supporting adults with intellectual disabilities. I'm also the Nova Scotia CAGP chapter chair, and I'm also a death educator or death doula or end-of-life educator, whichever term appeals most to you. And my drink I have with me today is not one I've ever had before, and it is called Death in the Afternoon, and it is champagne with a shot of absinthe.
And just in case you folks don't know, in Nova Scotia, the time is actually noon, right? So it is afternoon, so it's appropriate. Now, I am drinking the Angel of Death. And you've got to like gin and sweet vermouth for this drink. No, that's my first sip. Might be my last. Not quite ready for the Angel of Death yet. Now, for me, a little bit, just a teeny bit about myself. Aside from the role of the donor motivation consultant, I am a certified financial planner. And I do spend a lot of time working with donors and clients with their estate plans and their charitable giving work that they do, both at the end of life and during and while they're here. So I want them to have fun giving their money away. So now some people might find it odd that we want our colleagues to get comfortable with the dying conversation. Now, I'm wondering if you two can share with us or with everyone out there how getting comfortable with the death conversation helps you in your role as a plan giving professional. How about we start with you this time, Liz?
Okay. Well, I came about this role in part through my work. We support people with intellectual disabilities, and many of them are aging and having to come to terms with either facing death themselves or the death of loved ones or friends at Bonnie Leaf Farm. So I did the training in part to support them, but also it has assisted me in showing up for our donors when we're having plan giving conversations and developing a comfort with being present and listening and supporting them as they face this and making many decisions affecting their loved ones.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think for me, I always talk about the fact that, and Serena said this earlier when we were chatting, it's a real privilege what we do in being an advisor or being working closely with donors. And I think, we're getting invited into people's lives at different points. And so that comfort zone is so important because we don't know where they are. And so I think it's super important for me in my role to be able to meet other people where they're at. And I think that embodying death positivity helps me hone in on authentic empathy. And so I think that when we kind of recognize none of us are getting out of here alive, we're all on our own journey and we're all doing the best we can, but our time here is finite. And so I think when we can kind of acknowledge that in chatting with individuals, we recognize that, let's make the most of today. And so if my role is to help somebody with making a gift, I'd like to make the best interaction that I can.
And I'm a planner, and one of the most important parts of your overall plan is your end of life planning. And it always turns out better if you have time to plan for it and think about what you'd really like to happen. And if you don't think about it until the diagnosis is there, it doesn't really give you the exit that you'd like to have. Or if you're lucky enough to have enough time and to work with somebody as knowledgeable as Liz, they can help you through that process and get you to where you're comfortable with it. And mainly your family too, that they have a good experience with it. But yeah, we do try and make the end of life a good part of the process. So I'm loving that we have this conversation now. I'm happy that it's now, because the conference is in June, and we are so lucky this year because Liz and Janice together are holding a master class on getting more comfortable with the death and dying conversation. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what's coming up there. How about Janice, you want to start with that one?
Sure. So Liz and I are thrilled to be offering this masterclass at CAGP. It's going to be an intensive morning, first a 90-minute session and then a 60-minute session, but hopefully worth everyone's time if you're joining us. The class, we are hoping to max out at 50 participants participating, simply because we think we want to ensure space for safe conversation, and this is a tricky tricky subject matter. And Liz is going to be guiding us through kind of thinking about our own planning and some of our own impressions of death. And then we're also hoping to have a little bit more of a death cafe or an open conversation with our participants. And then lastly, we will also be offering an opportunity to practice, again, hopefully in a safe space that we'll be working through the morning.
That's an opportunity to practice discussing, not practice dying. Okay.
Exactly.
So,
However,
okay.
However, in Korea, people pay for a guided experience of simulating their own death. And it's a means of learning and acknowledging and coming to terms with the fact that it happens. So that does exist in some parts of the world in terms of death awareness and death acknowledgement and enlightenment. And but we won't be doing that.
But you certainly are a wealth of knowledge, Liz. It's obvious. So I'm hoping that it fits in with my schedule. Because I feel, even though I talk about it a lot, I want to learn how to do an even better job than what I do now. So that's important. So what would someone expect to feel and go through from being a part of that masterclass? Liz, maybe you can share some of that.
Well, as Janice mentioned, we've split the class into two parts. So the first part of the class will very much be a reflection. We'll be engaging people who attend the session to really hold up the mirror on themselves and reflect and explore what's been their relationship with death. We each come to this, we've each arrived here. I've taken the path I've taken for a variety of reasons. People are going to sign up for this class for a variety of reasons. So we're going to invite them to explore a bit of what their relationship is with death, what their awareness is. And we will have some visualizations, I might say, and we will explore how to plan for support as you consider that. I don't want to give it all away. We'll also speak to, there's 4 areas of pain that people may face as they approach death or acknowledge death. And I think that if we can explore what these are and live more consciously, we might reduce those pains as we each approach our end of life, because we don't all know when that is coming. It is inevitable, but we don't know the timing, and not every death comes with a window of opportunity for planning in that moment. So it's best to be done beforehand. And then the second half of the session is very much how to show up now professionally in our workplace with our donors, and very much parking our own values and our own experiences at the door and showing up for them, and bringing what gift planners bring best, a sense of curiosity and a sense of caring and relationship building to that.
Interesting. So are people going to have to bring in their own supplies, or is that going to be just in the classroom as part of it? This is for me in every meeting I have it handy, because
I think it's fair to say that we'll probably pilfer from the conference and make sure that that's available.
Now, Liz just brought up something about parking your own norms and your feelings aside and focusing on the donor that you're working with, or the dying person or family that you're working with. Janice, I'm wondering if you have any experiences that you'd be comfortable sharing with us, how you've had to do that, to I guess put the person you're working with at ease.
Yeah, maybe I'll share. I'll share two really quick stories. So, I've always been interested in thanatology. I took it as an undergraduate student way back when, and thanatology is the study of death and dying. So it's kind of the theory and more academic approach. And so, I've had an interest in this broad topic for a very long time. When I started gift planning early in my career, I noticed how even though I had that background knowledge, I was still very ill-equipped for conversations. And I can recall one day receiving a phone call from somebody who said very matter-of-factly, "Listen, I just received a terminal diagnosis. I'd like to talk to you about setting up a gift in my will and blah, blah, blah." And I kind of went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I was overcome with nerves, and I was very uncomfortable, and I didn't really know how to properly guide that phone conversation. I had never had a conversation with this individual ever, so I didn't have a standing kind of friendship with them. And so it was kind of really caught me off guard. And from that point on, I went, wow, this is something that we all really need. I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Yeah, I think everyone's probably come up against this, right? It hits us out of the blue. And I think it was further underlined for me how important planning and this cultivation of a comfort with our own mortality and how important that is. When I kind of had my own brush with death a few years ago, very long story short, I was diagnosed after my daughter was born with a chronic and very serious health condition, which led me down a path of being visited in the hospital by a physician who said to me, and I still remember the words, "If you were my sister, I would have told you to have this surgery 6 months ago. If you don't have this surgery, you won't see your daughter grow up." So this, it rocked me. I was in my young 30s at the time, and I was taken aback. And I think that as I reflect on that now, I was in the midst of it then. But as I reflect back on the experience, and obviously I had the surgery and I'm doing well and things are great. But I think that it has helped me to go, yeah, I could go at any time, and so could anyone in my life. And how do I want to make sure I'm saying the things that I want to say in every moment? I'm living every moment as I can, and I'm being my most authentic and real self in showing up for work. And I'll just really quickly share with you one quote that I really love that I wrote down because I wanted to share it today. It's from a New York Times article from May of last year. And the quote is, "It's actually in facing the darkest realities that we find light in them."
That's a beautiful quote.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an inspiring story. And thank you for sharing that, Janice. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but it was very impactful. Now, Liz, do you have an example, or can you think of a situation where you might have to park your thoughts aside for the benefit of the moment?
Well, I'm sure I wouldn't be alone in saying that I've handled a call from a donor whose personal views, political views are fundamentally opposed to what mine might be. But that aside, they are equally as passionate about the organization that I work for. And therefore, all of my views and values get parked, and I support them in facilitating the gift that they wish to make. And so it can be very challenging. And it's similar also when you're doing the work that I do with people as they're learning and exploring and preparing for end of life. I may not share the same views that they have with respect to that journey, with respect to perhaps where that journey leads. But at the same time, I'm there as an educator, as a coach, as a support, as a guide, to help them along that way.
You know, still a little bit of my, I guess, background and experience about death, and why I'm so interested in really having more people involved with the session in Halifax. For me, I was very young and I lost some family members and to death, and never talked about it, never dealt with it properly. And then my mom got sick, and then I became a very troubled teenager, and I really was messed up for probably close to 20 years. And then I ended up getting a job with March of Dimes, where I would actually go into people's homes and work with them. And a lot of the folks were at the end of life stage, and palliative care was done at home. And for me, having conversations with people who were on their way out actually healed me. 20 years later, and it allowed them to talk about things, because I wanted to hear it. I wanted to share, and we did a lot of crying together, but it really had an impact on the family and people who were on their way out. And I still find myself going into hospital rooms and giving people foot rubs days before they go, to help them on their journey and talk about those last things that they want to do or talk about. And it's been very healing for me. So it's a selfish reason. You will get a lot out of this class if you've got the time to do it. We think of success when we talk about, being a plan giving professional as, a big gift or something like that. Can you think of a situation where there has been a good financial outcome from being able to really, dig in with your donor about what's important to them and what they wanted to leave behind when they're gone?
I can take a first stab at this question. I'm going to tell this story. If anyone is in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, you won't be a stranger to the names Charlie and Margaret Juravinski. And they recently, a few years ago, committed to $100 million legacy gift for McMaster University and our partner organizations, the two healthcare systems within the region, which is Hamilton Health Sciences and St. Joe's. This partnership was born out of this vision of these two philanthropists in the region. And why I wanted to chat about this particular gift is they actually wanted to celebrate the gift before they died. And Charlie actually just died yesterday, it was announced. So it's a true loss to the area and to philanthropy. But when they announced this legacy gift, there was a gala and a celebration of life, really, so that they could celebrate with all of their friends. And it was like being at a wedding. They had a first dance, they had special surprises, but it was this beautiful celebration of the impact that they would have on the area. And I just thought, part of the fact that what we don't do very much, and sometimes organizations are better at it than others, we don't give the opportunity to celebrate these impactful, ultimately sometimes the biggest gift from our funders. And I think that's what struck me about this gift from the Juravinskis, is that just that opportunity to say thank you before the impact was had.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that is a great story. And the tributes that came in for the Juravinskis over the past 24 hours have been, oh my gosh, very emotional reading them all. It's been lovely. How about you, Liz?
Well, yes, I have had many great conversations where I think people can tell when you are comfortable facing death with them. So they may be experiencing family members who get very uncomfortable or who won't even engage in the conversation. And so for them, it's very reassuring to know that they are safe to share what's happening to them, to share what their dreams are, to share what maybe some of their pains are that they're facing. And as gift planners, if we can be there for them in that way, we can help them realize some of those dreams. So I have here, it's a legacy of love. It's a story about one of our longtime donors who she knew she was terminally ill. And she called me up, and we would very often have date squares and tea. And so she called me and she said, Liz, I'd like to have one last cup of tea with you, and I want to talk about some things. And so I went, and she had her daughter there, and we had the most wonderful visit. And she very explicitly said what she wanted to do for us. And it was great on so many levels, because she was able to be fully there, fully present. I could thank her. We could talk about what that was going to do for the people at Bonnie Lee Farm, the impact it was going to have. And we were able to share with her daughter as well just how meaningful this gift was, not only to her mom, but also to her dad, who had previously died, and how it was going to carry on their legacy within our organization for many years to come. And so what ended up happening was we wrote this story, and it was called Legacy of Love. And it is about the love of the couple themselves, but then also their love for our organization. And the daughter ended up calling me and asking me, can you send me enough copies of that so that we can give it to all of the grandkids? Because we want all the grandkids to know how much you meant to my parents. And so that's something that happened because we had the conversation while she was still living, and because we were able to bring all those pieces together.
I love those stories. It means so much to the donors in their final, times in life. And it just, yeah, they're looking at their passing in a whole different way. They are looking at what they are leaving behind and the lives that they're improving. And it's so,
Yeah.
it brings such meaning. And as an advisor, I've been able to be part of that journey too with the people that I work with. And so I'm going to say there's probably three main gifts that I've helped to put in place that were all very significant. But it has brought so much joy to each of those individuals. Now, one of them has passed, but the other two are still just living in that gift. It really brings meaning into their life. One of the people was a guest speaker at our last CAGP live event in Montreal. And he announced at the session that we had that day that he was going to give back more to the children in Halton region for the school, that the board that he worked for, going to give back more in his passing than he earned from them in his whole career. So that was a pretty amazing story that he shared, but it was all about talking about what was important to him and what did he want to be remembered for. And if he could wave a magic wand, what would he like to see happen? And he wanted to see every child who wanted to go to school to be able to go to school for as long as they needed to go. So it's amazing. I'm so excited about Halifax, and please everybody sign up. Again, space is limited. Anyway, so is there any last words you want to say? We've got like 2 minutes left.
Maybe I'll just quickly, Serena, I saw that you had commented earlier when I said death positivity. I think this is where we have an opportunity. You know, we're talking about the impact of the legacy gift. And I think that goes hand in hand with death positivity. You know, early on in my career, people on, you know, the fundraising teams at organizations that I worked at, they used to call me the Grim Reaper in a joking way. And, oh, all you care about is the death of the person. But I think, you know, if we flip that switch, and as a cohort and colleagues and peers working in this space, if we're really able to say, like, legacy planning is a part of that death positivity culture, and it's part of breaking down those barriers so that everyone can enjoy today. I think that's where we all fit as a part of the puzzle. And I think that's the exciting thing about what we do.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Liz?
I just say that being aware of our own finite time helps us to live much more fully in the moment, in the day.
Well, I can't really add anything else. These are the experts. But I want to say thank you so much for sharing today. And I'm looking forward, Liz, to meeting you in person in Halifax, and a number of you out there today. So I want to be sure I share with you information about our next Campfire chat. And that is with Jay Stark and Aaron Kwan. Aaron is president and CEO at Lung, Saskatchewan. Now that event is March 17th, and it will be at 11:30 Central Standard Time. So 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. So it's a little different. So please put it in your calendars, and you'll get an email about it at some point soon, and register when you can. So thank you all, and hope to see all of you out there in Halifax. Thanks, Liz and Janice.